Hi everyone. Today's video we're going to be taking a look at Perfumer Byblis, the newest 5-star soul weaver. Overall, just quick thoughts. I think she's really powerful. Highly recommend folks pull at least one copy of her plus her artifact because she's definitely shaping up the RTA meta right now. We'll take a look at her skills here, starting with her S2, which is arguably the best part of her kit. So at the start of an enemy's turn, grants Lingering Fragrance, which is a new debuff to all allies for 1 turn. Just looking at this quickly, so basically anytime an enemy takes a turn, your entire team is going to be getting 5% health per turn and 8% damage reflected. So, at max, so 5 stacks, assuming the enemy takes 5 turns before you, that's 25% health and 40% damage reflect. That is a ton of damage reflected. So that's a super big part of her kit. Additionally, when an ally's health is 50% or less after being attacked, it activates La Vie en Rose, which dispels 2 debuffs. So it's a cleanse, plus it gives health to all of your allies and a barrier. So this is super anti-aggro. It's kind of protecting your team. A lot of times in the meta, you'll be debuffed by something like Seal, Speed Down, Unbuffable, that kind of thing. So if someone drops under 50%, it could be her allies on the team. She's going to basically cleanse 2 debuffs and do a huge health recovery. So it's based on, I think, her health. So high health is definitely a must-have on this unit. Her S3 basically gives her increased effectiveness. It's 50% more F, and it does redirected provoke and 2 venoms. And venoms are 10% of the enemy's max health. So it's effectively 20% of their max health and damage. They also can't recover it, right? On top of a provoke. This is really powerful, especially when you're going after an enemy team. So if they have things like immunity, those should all be gone by then. And then you're doing a lot of damage as well as causing this provoke on them. One thing to note is, obviously this doesn't have a strip on it or a dispel. So if an enemy has immunity, it's not going to land anything. So, in some cases, it may be wiser to hold this, depending on your use case, until after the immunity effect wears off on your enemy. Her S1 is a 74% chance to debreak. That's pretty powerful. And when you soul burn it, it also triggers a dual attack from basically your highest attack. So, it could be a DPS. Once the unit's death broken, a hit from a DPS is going to do a ton of damage, right? Her imprints, she has self health, 21% at max, and then also 12% for all of her allies. These are both really good. I think it just depends on the matchup. This is better, obviously, for her S2 heal, but sometimes that 12% health for your whole team can make a big difference, as opposed to just like herself living a little bit longer. In terms of like builds, this is what I have my Byblis on. So he's got high defense, high health, speed. I think the 220 to 250 range is what most people are in. Effectiveness is nice to have. I think most folks want about 50 to 100 because her S3 already gives her a 50% F buff, but having at least about 100 F on top of the F buff basically guarantees an RTA during like an effect resistance frenzy that you'll still be able to land some debuffs, right? So I think it's nice to have. Effect resistance, this is also nice to have. I mean, ideally you want like 100 of it, but it's very hard to build high health, high defense, speed, F, and effective resistance on this unit, so you kind of have to mix and choose what you want. Some would argue you don't really need ER that much because of her artifact, Veritas. So her artifact basically is kind of like a Warhorn. So enemy takes 3 turns, you're pushing up, and you're also doing a self-dispel on yourself. So I think some folks are arguing, you don't need to build too much ER on her. simply because if you have her own artifact, you're constantly going to be cleansing yourself anyway for free. But you know, I think 100's good. It kind of depends on the matchups in general. But yeah, I can quickly show the gear I have on her. So I have pretty high equipment score on most of these pieces. And you can see I'm obviously don't have the perfect stat line here, but even with all of this gear, you know, it could be better, right? Overall, I think in terms of what this unit is good against, as I mentioned before, it's super good against aggro comps. People playing like G-Ross, you know, his S3 does a ton of damage to your team. If you proc her S2 here, now you're basically healing your team up a lot of that, as well as giving that cleanse, and you're also getting a barrier from it, so it can help you recover from that kind of situation. She's also super good into Freerin, which is a common pick for a lot of aggro players, simply because of this lingering fragrance. If your team is quite bulky and can live, you know, the hits from Freerin, you're essentially reflecting damage, which goes through her damage mitt thing. So it's pretty good against that. It's also kind of funny to see this unit against things like Strays. When Strays presses S3, you know, it does a ton of damage to your highest HP unit. Funny enough, he actually will die if Byblis is on the team and he presses S3 because the damage goes through before the invincibility. So this unit is very, very good into anti-aggro. He's kind of like a stabilizer in a lot of drafts. And I see a lot of people taking her on like, you know, first or second pick. If you pair her with tanks, you know, like Bossa Runka, as well as you know, other carries. She's kind of a carry enabler as well. So if you have something like a Byblis Freerin or a Byblis Tori, these units all can get chipped away over time. But something like Perfumer Byblis, her S2 is basically guaranteed to proc super early on those units. It'll give him that health, and it'll also give him a barrier. So she's kind of protective in that sense as well. So she protects you from aggro, but she also enables a lot of your carries because now they have this kind of safety ticket without doing anything, right? As well as, you know, obviously her S1, if you can land a soul burn, it's going to be death break into a hit from your carry. So overall, I think this unit is super strong. I actually do think she's a must pull. Obviously, you don't need her SSS like I have, and you also don't need the RD plus 30. I definitely think people should pull at least one copy of each. It is a limited unit after all, so we don't know when it'll be rerun. But overall, I think she's really powerful, super good in RTA right now. We've actually seen her a lot in the E7 Masters Cup. So I think she'll be a unit that stays here for a while. And yeah, looking forward to seeing how everyone utilizes her. In terms of, you know, sets, a lot of folks using speed set, immunity set. You could go try HP set. I've also seen protection set. So she's very flexible. At the end of the day, all you need on her is defense, HP, a little bit of speed, F, and effect resistance. Yeah, overall, I highly recommend folks pull her. Super cool character, and we'll see how she shapes up the meta.